Hi, this is James of Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to take a look at Aldarra, which is going to be published by Sordain Games and is a 2 to 4 player 4X game in which you're going to be controlling flying pirate ships and trying to conquer the land and control as much area as you can. So I'm going to go down to the table here. I'm going to show you how to play Aldarra, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to give you my final thoughts. Alright, so this is Aldarra. Aldarra, you'll be playing as a faction vying to exert dominance over the region. Clash with other factions to control the most profitable territories, claim crystals, and grow your fleet. Now, why are you doing all this? You're trying to gain the most victory points by the end of the game. Now, the end game is going to be triggered when someone reaches 20 points. At that point, the round will end and the person with the most victory points is going to win. You're going to score these victory points through spending coins, crystals, and scoring secondary objectives, and also exploration. Now, setup for this game is actually surprisingly really easy. What you're going to start off by doing is making the map. Now, in your first game, they do have some sample layouts that you can do. And you're trying to make them as symmetrical as possible, but you absolutely don't have to. So you could follow these or do your own thing. Now, if you're doing all thing, what you're just simply going to do is you're going to put these territories upside down, shuffle them all up, and place them all out. They can be in any configuration that you want. The world is your oyster for that. You're going to then shuffle the exploration deck here and set it aside. You're going to set it so everyone can reach, and then you're going to shuffle this secondary objective deck, and then the secondary objectives you're going to give 2 to each player. Then place that deck so everyone can reach. Then you're going to shuffle the discovery deck. Now, every faction is going to have a starting discovery, so make sure that everyone went through the discovery deck to find their starting discovery. In this case, this one's going to have improved thrusters. So I'm going to grab this improved thrusters card and put it near the player mat here. Now, getting to player mats, you're going to go ahead and hand out a player mat to every player. The base game comes with 4 players. Each of these have an asymmetric power. If it's your first game, I would recommend reading off what each of these can do. And like I said, there's going to be 4 factions here. So you have the Adrodian Syndicate, you have the Mining Corp Coalition, you have the Sindarian Empire, and you have the Ordian Empire. Those are the 4 that the base game comes with. There's also an expansion that I believe adds another 2. So everyone's going to pick their starting faction, whether you're going to do it randomly or let people pick or whatever you want to do, and then look at the starting discovery and get that discovery. You're also going to need to get your command tokens for your players. When you get your command tokens, they look like this, and you'll place 4 of these on your board here. There's going to be available for you to be able to move your different fleets out on the board. You're also going to place out this player tracker here. You're going to randomly pick who's going to be the first player, or however means that you want to do it, and you're going to place that first player marker here, and then in turn order you'll place the other player markers there. Now, as the game goes by, the turn order track's going to be determined a different way, but for now that's going to be our turn order. In addition to having your player board, your 2 syndicate or secondary objectives, your starting discovery, and your 4 command tokens on your player board, you're also going to grab the cards for your faction. These are going to explain all of your units. So you'll have those available out there too for you as reference throughout the game. And make sure you put them on the unupgraded side. Alright, next you're going to give the player components to them. Now I suggest you just give them these trays here. The game comes with these amazing insert trays here that store all your bits in there. So here's all your heavy stuff for the most part, and here's all your light stuff for the most part. There's buildings and engineers in here, the exception. One of the most important things you need to get out of this is going to be your starting stronghold. Your starting stronghold's a place you can build your ships and is perfectly safe from every other opponent. They're not allowed to enter it. They can't attack into it. This is what gives you the ability to keep pumping out units throughout the game. So make sure everyone gets their trays of units and they're starting building. So you're going to have to place out your fortress in here. How are we going to end up doing that? Well, we're going to place out strongholds and place out outposts in a snake-like draft here. So we're going to start off, since we said red was the first player, you can randomly do this or whatever you want, but either way, this is how it's going to work, is I'm going to go ahead and figure out where I want to place this stronghold. All right, so for placement rules, I can't replace a crystal mine there at all, and I have to be at least within, or farther, not within, 2 tiles of another stronghold. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to start off and I'm going to place mine here. Now, after I place mine here, I'm going to place 2 fighters and 1 engineer. 2 frigates. And you can see what those are from your board here. So this is a frigate and this is an engineer. So I'm going to go ahead and place out those things. So I get 2 frigates and an engineer, and I'll place those on here. Now in turn order, everyone else is going to place out their stronghold. So I'll just do that real quick here. All right, there we go. But there's one thing to mention when we get to the last player. Now, if you're the last player, your stronghold, you may choose a tile within 2 tiles of another stronghold. So I can actually break some of the restrictions if I'm the last player. In addition to that, we're going to do a snake draft. So that last player is going to place an outpost, starting with the player who placed a stronghold last and proceeding in reverse order. Each player chooses an unoccupied tile on their in which to place their outpost. You may not place your outpost on a crystal deposit. Place an outpost, 1 frigate, and 1 engineer on the chosen tile. So these are going to be your outposts, and then you also have fortresses that you could do later. Outposts and fortresses have different things that they can do, so they're important for their placement. So I'm going to place an outpost here. The yellow player is the last player. I'm going to place 1 frigate, 1 engineer, and 1 outpost at my chosen location here. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to try to stay near my guy here. So I'm going to go ahead and place 1 here. And then we're going to go in reverse turn order and put the rest out. So I'm going to do that right now. All right, that's it. That's literally all you have to do for setup. I've played a lot of 4X games, and a lot of times the setup takes a really long time. This game, thankfully, the setup doesn't take very long at all, and you're ready to get into the game here. Now, the game's going to be played over 3 phases each round. You're going to have the preparation phase, you're going to have the expansion phase, and you're going to have the management phase. Now, in the preparation phase, you would determine turn order. Now, I'm going to explain that, but on the first round of the game, you skip this because you will maintain this turn order until the next round. But starting with a player with the fewest victory points, so as the game goes by, we're going to have some victory points here. And starting with a player who has the fewest victory points, they're going to go into the first place. Now, if anyone's tied here, whoever was lower in the order is going to move ahead. And then we're going to have our new turn order. So that's how you pick turn order at the beginning of each round in the determine turn order phase. Now, remember, though, during your first round, you've already selected during the arrival your turn order. So, which is the part where we're placing out our outposts and strongholds. So we don't need to do this. We can skip this portion. The next thing we're going to do, which we don't skip, is we're going to spawn crystals. So when we spawn crystals, we're going to take each of these locations here that can make crystals, and we're going to place a crystal out of there. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to roll some dice here to see how many more crystals we're going to place out. So we're going to roll 2 blue dice here. And we're going to get a number here. So we have 5. These numbers go from 0 to 3, and they have an exploding die on here. But that's for combat. So now we have 5 crystals. Now in turn order here, we're going to place out these crystals. there's some rules for this. You may not place a crystal on a stronghold. You may not place a crystal adjacent to your stronghold. You may not place a crystal where there is already a crystal. And you may not place a crystal in a territory units belonging to any player. Now, there's an exception for this. As we're placing these crystals out, if there's no legal place to place these crystals, sorry, I can't place them next to my stronghold. If there's no legal place to place these crystals on your turn, you're going to have to place the crystal with one of your opponent's units, so they will gain the crystal. And that's going to be spawning crystal. And that's it for the preparation phase. That's the beginning of the round, and now you're really into the meat of the game, which is going to be the expansion phase. And for this, you're going to have 3 turns each. You're going to place orders, you're going to movement, you're going to combat, and you're going to explore. All right, so you're going to have 3 order tokens. You have a 4th, which can potentially be used. Don't forget, too, on this first round to read off the special abilities of your factions so everyone knows, especially if it's your first game here. So like if we look at this Ordian Empire here, during the choose discovery step, you may take an additional discovery from what remains after everyone has claimed one. We'll go in that in a second. Your buildings have move speed of 1. All explore cards and territories that affect airships affect your buildings as well. Your buildings do not count towards the stacking limit, but you may never have more than 1 building in a territory. Okay, so we're going to go over that in a little bit, what they're talking about stacking limit, but the first thing we're going to do is we have these 3 command tokens available here. On your turn here, you're going to place 1 command token out. And here we're going to go here until everyone has got their command tokens out. Now, simply, when you place a command token out, you get to do one of 2 things. So let's say I place a command token here, okay? Well, I can move units into that spot, or if I placed a command token here, I can move units out of the spot, but I can't do both. So I'm going to look on this board, and I'm going to look at a couple different things here. The first thing you're going to be concerned about is going to be the speed of your ships. Now, speed is going to be determined by their class. You have 2 different types of ships here. You have light and heavy. Those matter for movement and for combat. So light units, unless otherwise stated on the card, have a speed of 3, and heavy units have a speed of 2. So if I place this here, let's say I want to move some units over here, the engineers are going to be heavy units, so they can only move up to 2. But that's within enough, so I can move my engineer over here if I wanted. And I can move these 2 light frigates over here. And maybe I want to, and then I could be able to claim that crystal. So again, to recap, there's 2 different types of things you can do by placing your command token. You can move into or out of an area with that. If you move into an area with, I know I already placed one here, so let's say I move into an area here with an opponent, a battle will begin. And we'll go over battles in a second, but notice that that'll happen immediately, and then we'll have to resolve it and then move on. So a couple things with the movement rules. Airships, so you're going to look at light or heavy, 2 or 3, or some abilities will make them go a little faster if you want. So one of the most important things in this is going to be stacking. So in a region, you can't have more than 5 units. So I couldn't have any more in here. For stacking, the outposts and fortresses don't count towards that, but you can only have 1 building in any location. So you have to watch that too. And this stacking limit only applies to your own units. You may not move through a territory containing enemy units. If your territory containing enemy units, you must stop on it. And also, there's these mountains. If you go into a mountain, you have to stop on the mountain too. In addition to that, you can't go through any other player's strongholds at any point. Even if there's no units in it, you can't go through it. Crystals in this game are stationary and cannot be carried by units. They are mined during the mine step. Management phase, so we'll have to have units there to be able to mine it and have control. And that's how we're going to pick up our crystals. So I moved into that area, but I don't get it until the management phase, which is going to be the next phase. All right, so what else is there with the movement phase? Well, we're going to get to exploration in a second, but I wanted to briefly go over combat. So combat's going to occur if you move into an area with an opponent. And the way combat's going to work is we're going to stop what we're doing after we do that, and we're going to resolve it. All right, so combat. Combat's going to be a big portion of this game, so we're going to make sure we're going to go over this solidly here, but it's very simple. In the game of combat here, when you move into an area with your opponent, now you can never move into a fortress, so keep that in mind, even if there's enemy units here. But if I move over here and I initiate combat, we're going to look at what vehicles are there. There's two different types. They're going to be light, well, technically three, light and heavy. Buildings are going to fall in the heavy end. Light ships fire first, and then heavy and buildings fire second. Now, the light ships in this case are going to be two frigates. If you look at the frigates here, you're going to see what they roll. In this case, it's going to be a green die. Now, green dice can only roll up to the maximum of 1, and they have a lot of zeros on it. Red die can roll up to a maximum of 2, and they have some zeros on it. And the blue die can roll up to the maximum of 3 and have a 0 on it. So that's how the dice scale up. In this case, we have two frigates out there, and they're going to each roll. Each player is going to roll for the frigate. Now, you could roll a 0, which is no damage. You can roll 1, which is 1. I ended up rolling a exploding die here. So I will have done 1 damage at least, and I'm going to re-roll it again. And let's say I rolled a 1. So that means that I would do 2 damage. So how does that work? Well, if you look at the cards here, they're going to have an armor value on here. In order to destroy a ship, I have to exceed or match the armor value. So I could destroy their frigate here. They have also an outpost I could not destroy. If I did 2 damage to this, they would just fall off. I could destroy the frigate, which has 2, which is what I'm going to do. Or I mean the engineer. I'm going to go ahead and destroy their engineer. Now you would say, okay, well, the only heavy vehicle left there is my engineer. However, the outpost also gets to fight. And in this case, the outpost is going to be able to roll a red die, which is better. So they'll roll a red die, and for my engineer here, it says I can roll a green die. So they'll roll a red and I'll roll a green. I got a 1, they got a 0 again. So my 1 affects nothing here because I can't do enough damage. Oh, I can destroy their frigate because they had their frigate left. But I can't touch this outpost. So now, as the attacker, I get to make a decision. Do I go into another round of combat or I retreat? Now, the attacker picks first, and when you retreat, you go into an open area or one that you control. So I could go over here if I wanted to retreat. If I didn't want to retreat, the opponent can't retreat because they have the tower, the outpost there, sorry. Now, the problem is that outpost takes 3 damage before I can destroy it, and I'll probably just end up losing units until, I can either be super lucky, which is probably not going to happen because they're both green die. I actually can't be super lucky, so I can't defeat. I could get the exploding die, I guess, but that would be crazy. So best thing to do would be retreat. Now, that would end combat. However, if the attacking player remained in the area when the combat was over, they would gain a victory point, so you just mark them up on the victory point track. If the defending player is the remaining player there, like in this case, they don't get anything, but they have rebuffed the attacker, so it's worth that in general. And that's how combat works. The last thing you can do is explore. So when you explore, you can place a token, explore token, in that tile if there's no other explore token in that tile. If that's the case, you can draw an explore card. There's going to be 2 types of explore cards here. There's going to be, let's find one, ones that say hold. If that's the case, you put it back in your hand and you hold on to it. If they don't have that, you play them immediately. Like this one here says, draw 2 explorer cards, choose one, and resolve and discard the other card. All right. So there's all these different explore cards that you could get, and they're all good. So you always want to try to be able to explore if possible because it always gives you good things. Now, a limit on explore cards is you can only have 5 explore cards at most in your hand. Now, we're going to continue on to this expansion phase here until everyone has put out all 3 of their command tokens. After that, we're going to move on to the management phase. The management phase is going to have mine, buy victory points, check win conditions, draw secondary objectives, and choose discoveries, and then build. All right, so for mine, you're going to first collect 10 coins for your stronghold, so you'll always get 10 coins. You're going to collect coins for each territory you control that can be mined. The number of coins mined is determined by the territory. So if you have a forest, that's going to be 1 for you there. If you have a copper deposit, that's going to be 1. If silver deposits are going to be 2, and gold deposits are going to be 3. Having more than 1 unit in territory has no effect on this. It's just if you control it. So if you have the most and you are basically, you'll never have an opponent in it, really. So collecting all crystals in territories in which you have units too. So if you have, so all the crystals that are on the board, if you have units there, you'll be able to collect those crystals. The next thing you can do is buy victory points. So you can buy a single victory point for, and you can only pick one of these 4 options. 3 crystals will give you 1 victory point. 5 crystals will give you 3 victory points. You could do 10 coins for 1 victory point, or 20 coins for 3 victory points. So the max you can get in victory points in this section is going to be 3 victory points. All right, then you're going to check the win condition. Did anyone hit 20 points? If so, the game is over, and proceed immediately to the end game. So the game ends in the management phase. You could then draw secondary objectives in turn order. Each person chooses one of the following: draw a secondary objective from the card deck, or discard any number of secondary objective cards in your hand and draw that many new ones from the deck. If you meet the requirements, you may claim a secondary objective immediately upon drawing it, but if you do not, draw another card to replace it. Reaching 20 victory points, this step does not cause the game to end until the check condition of the next management step. So all these objectives are going to have different things that you can get. At any point in the game at all that you meet these, you immediately claim them. However, in this part, when you were drawing objective cards, secondary objective cards, that won't end the game if we hit 20. It won't end until the end of the next round there. Now I'm going to go ahead and choose discoveries here. So we're going to place out discoveries equal to the number of the players here. And each player is going to, in turn order, grab one of these up. They can't pick one that has that they already have. If they already have, if there's no available ones for them to pick up, they will draw from this deck until they find one that they don't have. And that's how those work, and those will power you up through the game and give you cool abilities. The last thing you could do is build. Players build new units in turn order. You start by buying and placing units before your turn. Do not need to commit these decisions until after the players before you in the turn has declared their finished building. So in turn order, basically, you're going to build all your units in here. The cost for building your units is going to be down here. So these strongholds are going to cost 4. You have to remember you have a stacking limit of 5 airships per territory. That doesn't include buildings, but you're only allowed 1 building per area. You cannot build units at an outpost during the same build. So I can't build an outpost and then build at the outpost. And that actually brings up an important point. An outpost can be built only where you have an engineer. So if I have an engineer out on the board here, like I do right here, I could build an outpost out there. Fortresses are built by players by the cost of the fortress by replacing an outpost in a territory. You may have at least 1 engineer on the territory you are building the fortress on, so I have to have an engineer there. All right, so where can we place these airships that we bought? Well, you can build up to 5 in your stronghold, and 2 at each fortress, and build up to 2 engineers at each outpost. So fortress will let me have normal ships. Outposts really only let me produce engineers, and my stronghold can let me produce anything. Now, again, there's limits going to be up to 5. All right, that's it. That's going to be how you're going to be playing Aldarra. Now, you're going to keep on going until someone gets to 20 points, and at the management phase there, the game's going to end. If you get 20 points during the management phase after the check, you're still going to do another round of play. All right, so at the game end, how are we going to determine a winner? Well, the game ends if any player has had 20 points during that check. The player with the most victory points win. If there's a tie, the tied player earliest in the turn order track will then be the winner. So there's no ties in Aldarra. And that's it. That's going to be how you're going to play the game. So let's go ahead back up the table here, and I'll give you my final thoughts on Aldarra. That was Aldarra. Now, this game is big. This game is a grandiose 4X game. So think like Twilight Imperium. However, this game is significantly easier to set up and significantly easier to teach and get into the game. The game can take a little bit of time, but it doesn't take up to 12 hours. So that is also a giant bonus on the game. You can really tell the love that went into this game. From the component quality, which is phenomenal, different sculpts for all the different factions, the amazing little minis for each of the ships that have those different sculpts, the insert that comes with the game to hold everything in there. The card quality is phenomenal. Everything component-wise for this game is phenomenal. If you love 4X games, this game is definitely going to be game up your alley, especially if you like 4X games, but you don't necessarily like the lengthy setup and the long teach. Like for Twilight Imperium, it could take me up to an hour to teach it. Aldarra, 18 minutes or less, I can get people into the game here. I could probably even cut it down below that, because I could just go into the different steps and just go over combat real quick and how you get your victory points, and then we're ready to go. Well, everything else is pretty self-explanatory. They do a really good job putting that on the player board, so they can always reference that. It shows you how the turn order works, shows you how to get your victory points. Just all the thought that they put into this to making this a streamlined game is amazing. I like this game so much that it has the possibility of making it into my top 10. I really love games like this. I love 4X games. I really love 4X games that I can get to the table and teach and have a lot of fun with people really quick. And this is going to be one of those, especially with how grandiose it looks and how it can draw people in. And I really love the theme. So yeah, keep that in mind. The theme, where the flying pirate ship thing is I just really like it. Ever since like the Skies of Arcadia video game, I've been hooked on that sort of idea. I think that's really cool. So keep that in mind when I'm talking about this, because I already have like a huge bias to liking it. But overall, I think they did a great job. I believe this is the company's first game, and they knocked it out of the park. They did a great job with it. Everything I wanted is in a game. Where it stands out, where it has differences between the other 4X games I play, and it has its own niche, which I really appreciate. So overall, I would highly recommend Aldarra if you love 4X games. If you don't love 4X games, the game ain't going to change your mind. You're still not going to like 4X games, especially since the exterminate is a big portion on this game. I also like the fact that you really can't just eliminate a player. You gain those coins in combat when your ships are destroyed. That is a really cool mechanism that I wish others might employ on there. It's more about your strategy than your ability to just wipe out your other players' units when they're not paying attention or have that your focus. So there's a lot of different things to do in this game, although that's still there. You still want to try to keep people on their guard and wipe out things that you can wipe out, but you can't just eliminate the player, which like I said, I really appreciate. The buying of points is really cool because, you can sneak by a win and maybe put out some sacrificial units and allow the other players to attack them, and that's really cool. The other thing too is actual combat, moving into combat, can be advantageous to you to move additional spaces. So that is pretty cool too. So there's a lot of things to think about on this game that on the first blush there you may not consider. So it's really easy to get into. People have a chance of winning immediately, but there is a lot of reward in replaying this game and having a lot of experienced players play it. You can get into really cutthroat games. I just love this game, as you can tell. This game is definitely 100% going in my collection. Like I said, it might even make my top 10 list. So it is really great, really love it, and that is Aldarra and my thoughts on it. Thank you for watching.